Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video about Gun Gamers Productions. I'm Eric.
I'm Kyle.
And today we're going to be talking about our next upcoming game, Attrition, at Zulu 24 on February 4th.
So we decided that after years of playing games in the Northeast and growing up through the small scene there, winter games are a lot of fun in the snow, but nobody's really done a winter snow related on a large scale before. It just hasn't happened.
Yeah, I think a lot of games that have previously been run in the winter, because the ops scene doesn't totally shut down, but there's nothing outdoors.
No,
it's largely a lot more focused on indoor type stuff or heavily indoor type of facilities.
Yep.
But outdoors is really kind of neglected in the winter, and we think that's a mistake. We're hoping to be able to prove that, hey, you can come out and you can do this, and it's a lot of fun because of that added level of challenge, not despite it.
Correct. And there has been a number of winter games out for small open plays and stuff like that. And I'm sure if you're interested in this, you've done an open play in the winter before, and it's a blast. And it's a lot of fun, which is why we wanted to take this on and kind of do this challenge and do something different. And there have been national events in the cold where the temperature has dropped down below freezing plenty of times. But not one that was intentional. So we're looking to intentionally make it hard for ourselves because it'll be way more fun.
Yeah, well, and the snow also invites different types of ways to play, different types of ways that you can dress for it, different costumes and different uniforms for it. Actually, one of the rules changes that we made for this game that we should lay out right off the bat is we are not doing. This is laid out in our addendum document for Attrition that we will have linked down in the description.
Yep.
But this will be standard for all of our games, by the way. Not with the specific change, but there will be addendum documents for every game that we run. So anything that we put in those addendums, unless very obviously stated otherwise, that is the law for the game, even if it runs contrary to something in our base rule set.
Correct. And the reason we do that is there's never going to be anything monumental in terms of how it shifts. It's just going to be tweaking for where, when, and how things are playing for a specific AO. Like, perfect example for running this at Zulu, Zulu can't run tags due to noise ordinance issues. So that's an amendment that we have in there, and it's just because that's how they operate things there. We would love it if we could just use tags, but unfortunately, he would be upset and the neighbors would be much more upset.
But the specific rule change that I wanted to bring up is related to our uniform rules.
Yes.
So our uniform rules for Attrition, being a winter game, are going to be different from our uniform rules for fairer weather games, where we are allowing the use of armbands as our predominant IFF for teams.
Yes.
And it's going to be blue versus yellow, two very opposite primary colors, neither of which are used for dead rags anywhere.
Correct. And this is cool because, again, we're seeing this in, it's not just something for an airsofty team thing. It's seen in real conflicts around the world if you pay attention to any global conflicts. Yeah. So it's a realistic thing to do, and it frees up options so players can wear really cool uniforms, and one side isn't stuck with a distinct disadvantage with the style of clothing that they have to wear.
Well, and it allows you to use your best cold weather gear. Because that's a safety consideration, because we are going to ask you, as usual, to be out in the elements, away from your cars and away from everything for 12 hours.
Yeah. And when you're out there, if you're not used to being outdoors for long periods of time in the winter, you've probably gone out for an hour and everything was super easy. And that's true. But when it turns into 12 hours, everything dramatically changes.
Yes.
So we want people to be prepared and over anything else, over any kind of camo pattern or stuff like that. Be prepared for the elements, because if you freeze out, it won't be good for you at all.
As I put in our supplementary document, if you die of exposure in an airsoft game, you die of exposure in real life.
Yeah.
So don't die of exposure.
Don't do that.
That does go into a little bit, though, why we selected Zulu as the venue for this.
It does. We wanted Zulu because it's kind of almost a little bit smaller than the last event that we went to. And we wanted that actually intentionally. That was a choice that we made because it has a lot of really cool features, but it's a little bit tighter. And the reason why is because in the winter, everything moves slower.
Yep.
And you have to keep that in mind when you're moving people and things around. Because otherwise, if we did 700 acres in the middle of winter and there was 2 feet of snow, everybody would die. It would be cool, but nobody would make it.
Or if we get to a point where everybody would not die, that's absolutely on the table for the future.
That is also correct. So if you guys show up and just absolutely smash this, things like that are on the table.
Oh yeah, I mean, we want to do that type of stuff. We just need to prove that it can be done safely.
Yes, exactly.
And that's the other thing is, realistically, a consideration is safety.
Yeah.
We do need to have emergency options for if people are getting hypothermic, and it's not pre-hypothermic. It's not a thing. But if you're genuinely getting hypothermic, we can bring you somewhere inside, get you to a car, get you to a fire pit, warm you up pretty quickly.
Yes.
So it is a safety feature. So make sure that you're managing yourselves well out there, guys. It is easier to manage yourself in the cold than you would think if you know how to do layering. Have a video on that we just made.
Yep, and I have another video for tips and tricks in the winter for snow as well, so that'll also help you out.
In terms of any other preparation that you should do specifically for the elements, watch those videos, but also just understand that you're gonna be away from your car for 12 hours. If you want to be successful at that, be ready to pack in some extra layers, shed and don layers, and understand that even though it's a one-day game, it is going to be somewhat of a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes, 100%.
Movements are going to be fast and intense and very exciting when they happen. We have some really cool missions designed for that.
Yes.
But you will need to make sure that you're also taking the time to manage yourself, just because we need you guys to be safe.
And you know what? And we don't have it filmed yet, but we're definitely going to film some sample loadouts of how we would pack if we were going to be players for this, so players can be ready for it.
Yep.
But we also did some general changes and improvements that we're doing from this from Overture. And I would say the biggest thing that I was the most unhappy with personally at Overture was the medical interaction device. Do you want to talk about how we're changing that?
So one of the things that we had as a mission reward at Overture was a medical pack that you could find, and that would allow anyone who found it to take off their tourniquet and reset within a certain radius, and you would just use it immediately. And we didn't like that because then it didn't have much of an incentive to find it. And also, then finding it was kind of like, oh, well, it's cool, if we find this in the middle of a gunfight. But if we're just in the middle of a movement to contact, then it's not as useful.
Yes.
So we actually are redesigning that, where those are now going to contain one-time use bandages, and those can be used for an extra heal on top of your 2 tourniquets.
Correct, and those will be in a unique color, so they're easy to identify, and if they're not used, they're instantly lootable items for players. If you see people who have one in a squad and one person's wearing one, search all the other dead players, because you may get some free bandages that you can use for that 3rd heal.
Yeah, so that's going to be the boost. They are not going to be in high supply. They will be very powerful due to being rare.
Yes.
So make sure that if you find those while you're searching somebody, you take that from them.
Correct, absolutely. But other than it being a 3rd heal, it works the exact same way all the other heals work. So nothing fancy changing in the rules for any of that stuff.
Yep, so it makes things a little bit less confusing and a little bit more directly rewarding, which is something that we are always trying to tweak with our games.
Yes.
We actually are also overhauling, the reward system for captures of COs and PLs.
Correct. So we're going to be changing that. Exactly how we change it, I don't want to give away too much, but basically before we had capture cards and we would call in and we would do things with it and stuff like that, it was a little bit more complicated than we would like, and it didn't give the players the direct feedback, because we want everything that the players to be interact with to give them direct reward, direct interaction, so it's something that they want to do, and it's not like, hey, I found the box. Well, now you get something for the box. So there will be rewards for players. If you find any commanders, PLs, or the actual commanders, and you search them, you will be getting much more tangible rewards than before.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you're going to be finding things that you can use.
Yes.
And we won't spoil too much of what they are, but you're going to like it.
Yes. What's the big prop that we're going to be adding in that we didn't use last time, weather permitting?
Weather permitting, we will have a drone on site.
Correct.
That will be usable as a recon asset for whoever controls the drone at that moment. And there will be different, uses for it, I'm sure, that you can come up with as long as you have access to it. But that in and of itself is going to be a point of contention because it's going to have associated assets that you need to control in order to be able to use it. And it's going to have the built-in, usable time of however long the battery lasts and cooldown of, well, now you got to get another battery.
Exactly.
So it's going to be a really cool thing that we think we're going to be able to add in. And then, if you're prepping for an assault on the other team and hey, they have access to the drone, maybe we can go off and get that drone, bring it back, use it as a recon asset for our assault or whatever you want to do with that. It just gives more options where you can have more and more preparation to really crush the opposition on an assault or deflate the opposition when they're assaulting you.
Correct. You could find holes in lines. You could find, hey, I want to sneak through here. Let's have the drone run a recon on this, see if we can pull that off. Hey, they're going to be attacking. What direction are they coming in from? There's going to be a lot of cool ways to operate.
And I'm sure ways that we're not even thinking of.
Oh, yeah.
That's almost the more fun part of creating these systems, right?
Yeah.
Is then the emergent interaction of those systems to make gameplay that we couldn't have predicted.
Exactly.
Yeah, overall, with attrition, I would say the core concept is that given the gameplay scenario is around a supply depot, right? If you're actually the type of nerd who reads what the scenario is and the lore, this is an abandoned supply depot area that's being fought over by the countries in conflict. So we've doubled down on resource management and consequence and reward type of gameplay for this. That's really our big core concept of attrition, I would say.
Correct. And you're going to see that not only is there going to be resource management through the chain of command a little bit more, but there's going to be opportunities for opposing teams to dip into the supplies of other teams.
Yes.
Because we're going to be using a distribution network that not per se the players, but the command chain is going to be responsible for managing. And if you guys can find that distribution network, there's going to be things that you can take that you're going to want.
Yeah, it's going to be much more about trying to defang the snake on the other side so that then you can just totally cut the head off.
Exactly.
I think in terms of major changes, we've gone over everything.
Yeah.
Let's talk about who our leadership structure is.
Yeah, so we have firmed up our leadership structure. Let's see. We have one leader that you've seen before, which is going to be Jim. Jim is going to be leading again, doing his wonderful job. And
some background on Jim. He was a captain in the U.S. Army, actually played airsoft before going into the Army.
Yep.
Went to the Army, went and did his Army stuff. He deployed a couple of times and then he came back. And then when he came back, he got back into airsoft. He's Milsim West cadre. He's been a leader for us at every game we've gone to for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So he's got a ton of experience. He's a really great dude. He's super fun to play with. If you met him at Overture, you know what we're talking about. So to switch it up, though, we do have Jim in charge of the Almeric Republic for this game, which is going to be Task Force Raptor. So Task Force Raptor is representing the Almeric Republic for this one. And for the Kingdom of Gojiria,
we're Garrett.
Yeah, we are tapping in Garrett. He's been a platoon leader for us in a couple of games. He is very heavily involved with the administration side of Task Force Keg and Task Force Bottleneck. He's very into a lot of that minutia and nitty gritty. We're actually very excited to break him into this role because he's very attention to detail oriented.
Yes.
And now, to give you a little bit of a taste of the platoon leadership, we have, some familiar Gun Gamers faces that are going to be doing the platoon leadership, but I want to give a shout out to two platoon leaders in particular that are not members of Gun Gamers, but longtime friends and guys who we definitely trust with our vision.
Yes. And the first one would be Weldon.
Yeah, Mike Weldon from RR Pennant, the Rushing Russians chapter, is going to be leading a platoon on the side of the Kingdom of Gojiria, and he is going to be awesome. He is a super fun guy. Yeah. He has a really positive attitude about the game. He likes to integrate people into larger units that work really well together, so he's going to be great for the platoon level. If you've gone to a Milsim West game with RR Pennant, I'm sure that you know how they like to play. It's a fun time playing with those guys and against them, I hate to say.
Exactly.
And then, representing the Almeric Republic as a platoon leader, we have Pat Casey.
Yes. He has like so much experience.
Oh my God, yeah. Pat Moncasey is another veteran. He was in the Army for a while, and he is very oriented at, hey, these plans are not that complicated. They can be made very simple, but they're very effective. He is just a Ranger handbook aficionado, the standard infantry fundamentals.
Yeah.
That's who he is. That's what he likes to do. Honestly, the experience that I'm more excited about with Moncasey than his Army experience, he's also very much into tabletop gaming.
Yes.
And he is really good at thinking about game design as much as he is thinking about military tactics.
Yes, and having that hybrid in Airsoft is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got a full staff lined up, and we're actually introducing another layer of staff on top of that.
Yes.
So we're going to have PSGs, which is going to be great.
So we're adding, we're basically splitting the duties of the platoon leader. Prior, the platoon leader was responsible for a lot of administrative stuff and responsible for, the welfare of everybody in the game in terms of game stuff.
Yeah.
So now we're having it where the platoon leader is the primary point of contact.
Yep. But
if the platoon leader has to step away for administrative tasks, you also have a platoon sergeant who is a very trusted member of the Gun Gamers Productions crew, and those guys are also going to be able to give you direction and know what's going on in the game, interact with people, or let's say they want to split the platoon.
Yep.
Send one with each half and make sure that people are always kept in with the chain of command, because we just like having people always have a view of the battle space and know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And the more people we have through that command chain network that are working with us on the backside of things, the better the experience gets for everyone. So much better. Because we've all been to games at national events where all of a sudden you're a squad lead, but you have to talk straight to the commander because everything else in between is just lost. And we do not want that. We will not have that.
Well, because the main thing is once you get those breakdowns, you get to where players start wandering around and they don't know where the fight is.
Exactly.
They don't know what the plan is, and no one feels like they can get those cohesive plans off the ground.
Correct.
We want to try to make it where you can really have so many points of contact that all know what each other are doing, that you can formulate and execute really cool plans that feel much more meaningful and much more fun and decisive than your typical airsofty beating each other down at maximum airsoft range until one of you runs out of ammo or gets unlucky and gets hit.
Yeah, exactly. It changes that, and then it also allows that if you're having any kind of issue, if you need help with something, you can set up, be like, hey, I need the rest of the platoon to come here. You now have the option. You can send that up the command chain. Command chain's like, yeah, absolutely, let's push in and let's do this. And it makes things better.
Yeah, we think we're very confident that we're going to have a very good game flow here. We actually did get a comment on a video where someone asked, why are you hosting it at Zulu 24?
Yeah.
I feel like the field is bad or whatever. And I actually disagree with that assessment. Yeah. And that's why we're hosting at Zulu 24. I think Zulu 24 is a really cool facility with a lot of really cool features. And there's dead space between those features.
There is.
That can be very difficult to navigate, especially when you have higher numbers. But we capped the event so that we won't have numbers that overflow the field at Zulu 24. Mm-hmm. The game we're designing would not work with too many players. So we've made sure to genuinely think about how many players can we accommodate while keeping this flowing well.
Yeah, exactly. Because we would rather do that than sell a bunch of tickets where people just end up in a meat grinder the entire game.
Yeah. And then in terms of the other thing is, you've got those very distinct features, and those features are really fun to fight over.
The town section, the building complexes, the helicopter.
Yep.
There's so many cool things there to fight over, which is nice.
Yeah, they're really cool to fight over, but you have to be able to have decisive fights.
Absolutely.
Because when the fights just turn into a continuous meat grinder, that's when the novelty wears off, and now you're like, all right, well, I wish I wasn't here for so long.
Yeah, you don't want to fight over the same ridgeline for 6 hours. No one's going to be happy if you do that.
Yeah, and you fight over the same village or the same castle 5 or 6 times throughout the course of the day. We're looking to have the action and consequence level gameplay applied to what parts of the field you see.
Correct.
Where, if you take all the necessary actions and achieve the consequence of being able to make your movements, then you're going to be able to actually move and see those next parts of the field and make progress or not make progress, or maybe you have to fall back depending on what happens.
Right, because if you fail, you're very likely you're going to see the flow, and you might find yourself pushed out because you can't hold back the enemy forces. We're keeping a really good design going here. We're excited for it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's another one where I'm salty I can't play, but honestly, with this one, with so many layers of staff, maybe we'll be able to throw our stuff on and sneak out for a mission or two in turn.
Yeah, maybe. I wish, man. That's the dream. Because at Overture, I was watching everybody just rocking it the whole game. I was like, oh!
But I think that's the broad strokes of everything.
Absolutely.
If you want more information on attrition, you can find all of it at the link below that will lead you to our website page announcing the game, and that will lead you to where you can buy tickets, where you can read the rules, and the supplemental document for the particular game that attrition is going to be. We have the Facebook group set up for the different factions. We have the Facebook page for the event. We have everything ready to rock. You just buy your ticket if it sounds cool. Once again, like Overture, it is ammo provided. So,
yep.
We had a lot of people scoff at the price, and I understand we're expensive for a one-day game, but we include your ammo. We include that whole different curated level of experience that costs money to have the staff to do.
Correct.
We think the quality of the game is going to be different from anything you've ever played at Zulu 24 before.
Yes.
And we're very excited to put it on in the winter, because then that'll just give us that other element of just doing something really cool, I think.
Absolutely.
So thank you again for watching.
Yes.
I've been Eric.
I'm Kyle.
And on behalf of Gun Gamers Productions, hopefully we'll see you at Attrition. Peace.